At first, nothing about the sky felt unusual. No alarms, no breaking news. Just another quiet object moving through the dark. Astronomers had been watching 3I/Atlas for months. A faint traveler sliding toward perihelion. Following rules written by gravity long before humans learned to look up, it was supposed to be routine, predictable, almost boring. Screens glowed softly in control rooms around the world. Graphs updated. Numbers flowed. Another discovery logged. Another object cataloged. Then the first light curve arrived. At a glance, it looked normal. A gentle rise. A smooth fall. But when researchers leaned closer, something felt off. The curve wasn't broken. It wasn't noisy. It was skewed, just enough to trigger a pause. Just enough to make someone zoom in instead of moving on. Light curves tell a simple story. They show how an object reflects sunlight as it spins. For comets and asteroids, the pattern is messy, uneven, alive with chaos. This one wasn't. The brightness dipped where it should have peaked. It lingered where it should have passed. Not wrong enough to panic, but wrong enough to remember. Someone checked the instruments. Someone blamed calibration. Someone else reran the data. Same result. Across the ecliptic plane, observatories compared notes. Different telescopes. Different angles. The same quiet deviation followed them all. No flare. No dust cloud. No visible explanation drifting behind it. And stranger still, there was silence. Most objects near perihelion grow louder in data terms. More heat, more activity, more chaos. 3I/Atlas did the opposite. Its signal flattened. Its noise fell away, like it was holding something back. Inside the ecliptic shadows, where solar interference often hides details, the object seemed almost careful, as if it knew when it was being watched, as if timing mattered. That thought never made it into official notes. It stayed unspoken, but it lingered in the room. Late at night, one astronomer replayed the curve again, slower this time, frame by frame. He noticed a delay. Not random, not gradual. Intentional, maybe, but intent is a dangerous word in science. So he closed the file and went home. By morning, more data had arrived, and the skew was still there, small, persistent, unwilling to disappear. Emails circled quietly, questions wrapped in careful language. No one wanted to be the first to say it out loud, because if the light curve was telling the truth, then something had changed. Not the sky, not the instruments, but the object itself. 3I/Atlas continued its approach, calm and steady, unaware or pretending to be, a visitor moving through ancient space with modern eyes locked onto it. And somewhere between the numbers and the silence, a new feeling took hold. This wasn't just observation anymore. It was a beginning of doubt. And once doubt enters the data, nothing ever looks the same again. The moment 3I/Atlas crossed ecliptic, the data changed again. Not loudly, not suddenly, but clearly enough that no one could pretend it wasn't there. Reflectivity readings began to pulse. At first, it looked like background noise, a flicker, a ripple, the kind of thing astronomers see every night and forget by morning. But this time the pulses came back. Same spacing, same depth, again and again and again. Light reflecting off the object rose and fell in measured intervals, like a slow breath, not drifting, not smearing under solar interference, holding its shape. Someone overlaid the data from different observatories, different continents, different instruments. The pulses lined up perfectly. That's when the debate started. One group blamed rotational symmetry. Another blamed surface geometry. Someone suggested unusual reflectivity from exotic ice. All reasonable, all safe, but the margins didn't hold. The timing was too clean, the signal too patient. Natural objects wobble. They jitter. They fall out of sync. This didn't. Every pulse arrived like it knew when it was supposed to. Inside conference calls and private messages, the tone shifted. Not panic. Something quieter. Unease. Because to call it random would require ignoring how stable it was. And to call it stable meant admitting something was maintaining it. Someone ran a simple test. They converted the pulses into time intervals. The numbers repeated, not perfectly, but close enough to make the room go still. Across labs, screens filled with the same silent pattern. A signal that wasn't loud, wasn't bright, wasn't urgent, just consistent. And consistency is rare in space. As 3i/Atlas moved deeper along its path, the pulses didn't fade. They adjusted, subtle shifts, like corrections, as if something was compensating for motion, distance, angle. No comet does that. The word artificial hovered near the conversation, but never landed. Not officially. Not yet. Instead, people argued about instruments, about software updates, about rounding errors. Anything but the rhythm itself. Late one night, a researcher muted the meeting and stared at the curve alone. He tapped the desk in time with the pulses. They matched. That scared him more than the data, because rhythm implies choice, and choice implies control. If this was just rock and ice, it should have drifted by now, smeared into chaos, lost its beat, but the pattern stayed intact. Calm, steady, unbothered by scrutiny. Outside the labs, the world kept moving. People slept. Cities glowed. Above them, something ancient or impossibly new kept pulsing as it crossed humanity's orbital plane. No message, no greeting, just a signal that refused to decay. And beneath the arguments and error bars, one question grew heavier with every passing hour. If no one on Earth is setting the rhythm, then who is? Heat is supposed to be simple. As an object moves closer to the sun, it warms. Ice breaks apart. Gas blooms outward. That rule has never failed. Until now, when the first thermal readings from 3i/Atlas came in, no one reacted. They didn't need to. The numbers looked wrong in a quiet way. Too low. At this distance, the surface should have been heating fast. Models predicted rising temperatures, increasing activity, visible change. Instead, the object cooled, not dramatically, just enough to break expectation. Researchers assumed sensor lag, solar noise, another small annoyance to log and correct. But the cooling continued. As 3i/Atlas drifted closer to the sun, its thermal pattern flattened, then dipped again. Cold where there should be fire. Someone adjusted the models. Someone reran the simulations. Someone else swore under their breath and left the room. Then, days later, the opposite happened. As the object moved farther along its path, where temperatures should drop, the readings rose. Slowly, deliberately, heat without cause. No visible outgassing. No jets. No debris cloud catching sunlight. Just warmth appearing. That's when people stop speaking freely. Thermal data doesn't lie easily. It's stubborn. It resists imagination. You can't explain it away with angles or dust. And this data was clean. Across multiple sensors, the same paradox repeated. Cooling under pressure. Warming in retreat. Like regulation. Like balance. Late-night messages began circulating. Short ones. Careful ones. Have you seen this? Is your data matching? We need to talk. One researcher printed the graphs and taped them to a wall. He stared at them for a long time, then took them down. Some refused to look at the numbers at all, because once you see a pattern like that, you can't unsee it. Natural bodies react. They don't decide. They don't hold temperature steady against a star. They don't correct themselves when conditions change. Unless something is managing the exchange. That's when the word appeared. Quietly. Not in papers. Not in meetings. In whispers. Artificial. It wasn't an accusation. It was a question no one wanted responsibility for. If the object was regulating heat, then it had structure. If it had structure, it had design. And if it had design, the origin wasn't accidental. One senior scientist closed the data window and said nothing. Another laughed too hard and changed the subject, because acknowledging the truth meant crossing a line science rarely steps over. Outside, the sun burned as it always had. Inside the data, something resisted it. 3i/Atlas continued its silent journey, adjusting itself with perfect patience. not signaling, not reacting, just maintaining. And for the first time since the anomaly began, the fear wasn't about what the object might do. It was about what it already was. Because if this wasn't a comet, and it wasn't a mistake, then humanity wasn't watching a passive visitor. It was watching something that understood heat, distance, and survival. Something that knew when to burn, and when not to. The statement appeared without ceremony. No press conference. No dramatic announcement. Just a short release, posted quietly, then left untouched. China confirmed what many already suspected, but said almost nothing else. Unusual observation data, unidentified risks, ongoing analysis. That was it. No charts, no explanations, no reassurance. And then silence. For scientists who've been living inside the data for weeks, the message landed like a cold weight in the chest. It wasn't what was said that mattered. It was what was missing. Because governments don't speak this carefully unless they are choosing every word to avoid something larger. Within hours, agencies around the world reread the statement again and again. Each sentence felt trimmed, sanitized, like it had been passed through too many hands. Unusual instead of impossible. Risks instead of threats. Unknown instead of unexplainable. No one officially connected the statement to 3I/Atlas. No one had to. Private channels lit up. Encrypted messages. Late-night calls that ended without conclusions. The data China referenced matched what others were seeing. The pulses. The thermal regulation. The refusal to behave like nature. But now, the conversation had shifted. This wasn't just science anymore. It was policy. Eyes turned toward one place in particular. NASA. Hours passed. Then a day. Nothing. No denial. No confirmation. No calming explanation. Just absence. For an agency known for transparency, the quiet fell heavy, almost intentional, as if responding would force a choice they weren't ready to make. Inside research labs, the mood changed. People spoke softer. Doors closed more often. Files were labeled differently. Outside, the public saw nothing. No headlines. No warnings. Just a sky that looked the same as it always had. But silence can be louder than any signal. If the data was harmless, why not say so? If it was explainable, why not explain it? Every hour without a response sharpened the same thought. Maybe there was no safe way to talk about it. Because how do you announce uncertainty at a planetary scale? How do you explain that something crossing the ecliptic doesn't follow heat, light, or randomness? And more importantly, how do you tell the world you don't know what it is? One analyst noticed something unsettling. After the statement went live, several data feeds stopped updating publicly. Not erased, just delayed. A pause. As if observation itself had become sensitive. As if watching too closely might change something. 3I/Atlas continued its path, indifferent to statements and strategy. It pulsed. It regulated. It moved with calm precision. Above Earth, the object offered no explanation. Below it, humanity debated whether explanation was even possible. And in the space between one government's warning and another's silence, a deeper fear took shape. Not that something was coming, but that something had already arrived, and no one knew how to say it out loud. It didn't begin with an announcement. It began with a leak. A chart shared too quickly. A graph posted without context. A quiet message that said, "Look at this and tell me I'm wrong." Public awareness didn't arrive through headlines or official briefings. It crept in sideways. Through forums. Through private groups. Through scientists who couldn't carry the weight alone anymore. The data spread faster than explanations ever could. Light curves that refused to decay. Thermal charts that bent against the sun. Pulses repeating with patient precision. People didn't understand all of it. They didn't need to. They could feel that something was wrong. Experts went on podcasts and spoke carefully, choosing words like stepping stones across deep water. They didn't say alien. They didn't say machine. They said things like unprecedented, unlikely. We've never seen this before. And then they went quiet. Others didn't. One researcher admitted on a late-night stream that he had stopped trusting his instincts. that the graphs made sense individually, but together they felt like something watching itself be watched. That clip vanished within hours, but not before it was copied. As more eyes turned upward, something shifted, not in the sky, but in perception. People began asking different questions. Not what is it, but why does it behave as if it knows where it is? 3I/Atlas didn't accelerate. It didn't signal outward. It didn't perform. It simply continued, adjusting, maintaining, existing with quiet awareness. The idea spread slowly, then all at once. What if this wasn't a visitor? What if it was a relic? A machine left running long after its makers were gone? Or a messenger that had crossed interstellar dark for reasons no one alive could remember? Or something older still? Something that didn't announce itself because it never needed to. Late one night, someone pointed out a final detail. As public attention grew, the pulses softened. Not vanished, just reduced. Still there, but less obvious. Like a dimming light when someone enters a room. No confirmation followed. No correction. Just more silence. That's when the fear changed shape. Because fear of the unknown is loud. But fear of being noticed is quiet. If this object was artificial, it didn't behave like fiction taught us to expect. No invasion. No warning. No demand. Just presence. A calm, ancient presence moving through human space at human time. And maybe that was the truth hidden in the data all along. That observation isn't one-sided. That when humanity looks outward, it leaves fingerprints, patterns, noise, and maybe, just maybe, something out there notices. As 3I/Atlas drifted onward, unresolved and unnamed, one final question echoed through every leaked chart and whispered theory. Are we studying a distant object? Or did the moment we recognize a pattern mark the moment the sky began watching back?